This is Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkle.
Welcome back to Inside the Wolf's Den with your hosts, Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkle. How are you, Shawn?
Doing good.
Doing good.
Short and to the point.
Short and to the point. Well, we're almost wrapping up the end of the year.
Correct. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm ready to be done with 2024.
Dude, you look tired today. Are you okay?
I felt really tired. I haven't been sleeping well. But no, I'm looking forward to this is not going to really come out until the new year. So we need to say, hey, welcome to the new year.
Happy New Year.
Is what we should be saying. But as we're recording this, we're wrapping up the year. And 24 was a great year. And really was a good year all the way around.
Yes.
It was real estate wise. That was interesting and not an easy year, but property management, TWL, Rooter even, it was a good year.
Yep, 100%. So ready to conquer the next year. We are working on our goals. Hopefully you guys are all as well. But today we're actually going to be talking about leadership, right? It's actually a conversation I've had with several people recently. And we just read a really good book called The Motive and the motive behind leadership, right? More specifically being a servant leader versus an ego-driven leader. And I thought we'd get that into that today.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about, are there natural leaders? Like, are they born or versus developed? Or and then what makes up a great leader?
Yes. So why don't we start us off on The Motive, the book that we just read, and the author of the book, which I think a lot of our listeners would love to hear about.
Yeah, so it's Patrick Lencioni.
Mm-hmm.
I said that correctly. But it's a great book. He's a great author. He's written several really good books. This is probably his least popular book, but it's actually really good. And we read it with our leadership team. And so just talking about the motive and the motivation behind leaders. And so really went into what it did is it told a story about two different types of leaders and went through this whole dynamic between the two. But the distinct differences and between serving others or seeking personal gain, right? Mm-hmm. And that's really what it dials down to.
What it comes down to, yes.
Is serving others for the common good, for the bigger mission of the company as a whole versus seeking your personal gain either within a company, because you don't have to be an entrepreneur or anything like that. This could be you just being a leader within a corporation or a corporate 500
Absolutely.
company. But there's different, are you just climbing in the corporate ladder for yourself individually and your personal gain? And all that's great, but the really true great leaders and that bring others with them are people that serve others.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I think in the book, it really kind of encourages the readers to look at your motives, right, behind why you want to be a leader and what type of leader are you? Are you the servant leader or are you the ego-driven leader, right? Yeah. And so really looking, and you have to actually put your ego aside and be like, man, like, maybe I am being a little bit egotistical, right? Being self-aware of that. And so I encourage everybody here to think about those things, right? And what makes up a servant leader and what makes up an ego-driven leader, right?
And I think before we jumped on and started recording, we were talking about it, and it comes down to a maturity is what we kind of nailed it down to, was that, you can start off as an ego-driven. I think as a young, aspiring either entrepreneur or somebody climbing the corporate ladder, there's a lot of self motivation.
Yeah. And for us, I can say, and I think I was telling this to somebody the other day when I was talking on this topic, when we started out at 19 years old, all we looked at was success, right? All we looked at is making money. Like, I don't think serving others was really at the top of our mind at that time, right? But as we, developed ourselves and, had mentors along the way and really, really dove deep into personal growth and self-development, that has changed. Yeah. So with maturity, absolutely.
Yeah. So it can evolve is what we're getting at. It's not one or the other. I think a lot of people evolves. And in the story, in the book, The Motive, the main individual became self-aware and ended up stepping down from, he was a CEO and ended up stepping down to a different position so that he could better serve others and better serve and be in a position that, number one, served others, but also serve the business better. And so, but he had to become self-aware of that, and that's what the whole book's about.
Right.
So let's define real quick, what is a servant leader versus an ego-driven leader?
Yeah, so I think you're asking me what like a servant leader is. It would be somebody that genuinely has a desire, right, to want to help others, right? Someone that has maybe integrity, shows empathy, maybe has, shows humility, accountability. All these things are great characteristics of being a servant leader.
Correct. So they serve the team, they foster growth, they build community. And but the most important is their humility and their commitment to the team's success, not their own. Right.
100%.
And then self-centered, ego-driven leader obviously is self-centered. And said it right there.
All they care about is their personal gain, their personal goals.
But also,
right?
I think this is a big one because I've seen a ton of them, and we've had a lot in our organization over the years, and they're not here anymore. A need for control, right? And I think that's all. And so that's usually a very big indicator, in my opinion, of a self-centered. Is that they
want to control everything.
And they sometimes can, if they're losing it, or if somebody challenges that control, man, it flips a switch on somebody. I've seen it, and all of a sudden it's like, so you got to really watch that, because there are a lot of people that need the control, or they think they do. Yeah,
right. And now that we're talking about that topic, I want to talk about like how does that affect the organization, right? Like a servant leader versus like an ego-driven leader. Like how does that affect your organization?
I think for starters, if you have a self-centered leader, a lot of times it can you can have a lot of turnover, right?
Yeah.
Because it's very
I think it's absolutely, and it just brings, I think, toxicity to your organization. And I would also like to say that like your employees are watching you, right? So they're watching every move that you make, and so practice what you preach. Like if you want your team, to be a servant leader, then you got to watch what you say, watch what you do, because they're watching you.
Yeah. And what some of I'll replay the question back to you. So what do you feel like the outcome of, let's say, a servant leader in your organization? What can it develop? What's the positives?
Teamwork, and we are all going in the same direction, all aligned, right? Your culture is just a healthier culture, as opposed to when you have an ego-driven culture, like everybody's in it for themselves. Nobody wants to work as a team because they have their own personal gains and goals. Right?
I think the company itself can go a lot further too.
100%.
And when you have a lot of servant leaders driving the business and all that, I think the company, actually you get further ahead than a self-centered, because in a self-centered, one individual might move ahead and make more money individually, but a self-centered, you rise up and everybody rises with you, right?
Exactly.
The company grows by exponential growth, and then which causes growth within your company, which allows for people to all rise to new positions, new income brackets, everything. So everybody rises, right? When you're pulling everybody with you.
Absolutely.
So, and serving others. So I think the company ends up being a lot further along than if it was just an individual.
Right.
Are leaders born or developed?
I think that leaders can have the natural ability to be a leader, but honestly, I think from my perspective, I think that they are bred, right? I think that along the way, you have to put work in. And even our son, right? He got invited to a leadership retreat. It starts there. They saw something in him that he can become a leader, but you still have to work at it. Yeah. And so no matter what, you got to put in the work.
I think there's people that are naturally born with a lot of natural skills. Charisma, intuition, decision-making skills that I think early on that benefits them. And so those people usually stand out, like especially like younger generations of the sports team, those kind of kids will stand out. But that doesn't mean that translates, because I've seen a lot, like leaders, like I'll look at my sports growing up. I know a lot of the kids that were leaders and our captains and all that
And
are not
they're
leaders.
not doing anything right now.
No, and they're not leaders. Some are, some aren't. But it depends on, I think some of them, it depends on the careers they chose, and that they develop those skills even further.
And ultimately they developed those skills. They, went through training, had mentors along the way, to really develop themselves, put in the work.
So I think it, more than anything, especially as adults, leadership can be developed, and it's about your experience, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, mentorship, and then education.
Yeah, absolutely.
What makes it?
Dan, we're at 10:45 and action. Sorry.
What makes a great leader, Joni?
So, number one that has a vision, right? Communication skills is another one that I think that makes a great leader. Also, somebody that has good emotional intelligence, right? Absolutely. Somebody that's aware of their emotions. Mm-hmm. Are you the type that's going to fly off the handle when you don't like something, right? Like a good leader can stay calm when things happen, right? Because again, your employees are watching you.
Mm-hmm. I think communication skills is vital too. You gotta be able to. It doesn't mean you have to be an outgoing, be able to publicly speak, that helps, but it doesn't mean that's to be a great leader. You can be an introvert. I think some of the greatest leaders are introverts, but they know how to communicate effectively their vision, communicate what they want accomplished. I think the accountability piece, right. I think that they can communicate well. Right?
Exactly. And somebody that also is inspiring, right? That, inspires others to do better with their life, in their careers, right? Like, and I think you're a fantastic leader, because I see you every morning walking the halls, asking individuals, employees, like, how are you doing today, right? Like, actually genuinely have an interest in how somebody is doing.
I think also, thank you for that. I also think being resilient and showing resilience is a good trait of a leader. So somebody that can weather the storm, not buckle under pressure, and adapt, right, when you face challenges.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it shows, because no matter what, things are going to change. You're not going to have all the answers, and you're going to have to adapt and persevere through things.
Yep.
I think a great leader contributes to the greatness, which is a servant leader, and contributes to the greatness of the company, the group, the employees, right? That wants to bring others with them. And I think that one of you mentioned earlier about the accountability and integrity piece. I think this is crucial in leadership, right? You got to do what you say you're going to do, right? Because people are watching, like you said. Follow through with what you said you were going to do. I think is important to being a great leader. Not lying to your staff or to your people. I think being honest.
Transparency, right? Yeah. Open and honest transparency, really.
Yeah. So anything else, any other takeaways you feel from the book or from leadership or some of the conversations that you had this week?
No, I just went back to this book, right? I thought that it was a fantastic read. And honestly, I think it took us, not even like 5 days to read it. Yeah. And so
it's a short read.
Yeah. And it got me thinking, really, like what type of leader are you, Joni? And really, like, maybe what are some things that you can work on to be a better leader? So if it's, accountability, like for me, sometimes I struggle with the accountability piece, right? Because sometimes I trust too much, right? But I struggle with that accountability piece. So really you can sit down and think, okay, like what are some things that I can work on to be a better leader? Because we can all of us can work on being a better leader.
Absolutely. So everybody listening, I hope you had some takeaways from that, but I hope you will reflect and work on your own leadership style and some of the qualities that we talked about, and become a better leader and be a servant leader, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Cheers to being a servant leader, and we will see you in 2025.
You've been listening to Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkle. Tons of entrepreneurial podcasts are out there. Talking. But Joni and Shawn are living it every single day. Their portfolio now includes many franchises and medium-sized businesses. We talk about the trials and motivators of successfully running a business. Join us again soon for another podcast. But until then, reach out on the website at InsideTheWolfsDen.com, on Facebook at Inside the Wolf's Den, on Instagram at Inside the Wolf Den. We'll see you again soon. This is Inside the Wolf's Den. We'll see you next time.